Hello, and welcome to The Art of Being Human. We've been talking about personalities, and what I've been trying to do is to get some kind of a handle on what attracts people to people. What are the characteristics that people have that you would be attracted to? What kind of characteristics do people have that you want to emulate, that you want to have yourself? And what about you attracts people? I mean, how come people are attracted to you? What kind of characteristics do you have? And I think basically we all kind of define people in terms of their traits. And I've talked about trait theories of personality, and they don't really have much merit. There's no test to prove them or to disprove them, and yet we still sometimes, I think, identify people according to their traits. Now, there's all kinds of tests out there to show what kind of a person you are, to identify what kind of a person you are. Most of them are just fun things that have no merit at all. I've seen tests based upon, you know what your personality is like by what kind of a pet you have. Is it a cat? Is it a dog? Is it a rabbit? A gerbil or whatever? And then some more sophisticated, what kind of dog do you like? Do you like a hound kind of dog, or a Springer Spaniel, or maybe a Lhasa Apso? And that's supposed to have some significance in terms of who you are as a person. I don't believe a bit of it. I really don't. But it's fun to take, and a lot of people do that. So I have picked up one which I'm going to actually discuss with you, and that's you can tell a person's personality and what they're like by how they eat their pizza. This is true. This came out. Not if they have pizza, but how they eat their pizza. And this is in a popular magazine, just kind of a, entertainment type magazine. And they said there are 4 ways to eat pizza. Well, then they went on to describe 5 ways to eat pizza. So I'm going to go over those 5 ways to eat pizza. Plus, they have them all labeled. There's names for them. Here are the 5 eating styles, assuming that you're eating pizza. The one style is called the influencer, then there's the careful connector, the supporter, the driver, and the classicist. So I'm going to go very briefly into all of that. If you are a person that's an influencer, you eat the crust first. Okay, so you eat the crust first. And what kind of characteristics do you have as a person if you are a kind of person that eats the crust first? Well, you set trends. You're independent. You like to try new things. And so basically it's saying you influence others by those characteristics. Then you have the careful connector. And this is a type of person who likes to eat pizza with a knife and a fork. So you don't eat it with your hands like most people do. You use a knife and a fork. And your characteristics are you are neat, meticulous, you solve problems, you're very analytical, and you are a perfectionist. So that's the careful corrector, and you eat your pizza with knife and fork, which I don't know who does that, but anyway. If you are a supporter, sometimes you fold your pizza. You can take a piece of pizza in your hand and just fold it up. Or you vary the way that you actually eat your pizza. Sometimes you fold it up, but sometimes you don't. What kind of characteristics do you have if you are a supporter? Well, you're creative, you're a free spirit, you are sociable, you want everybody to have pizza before you take your pizza so everybody has it. So therefore, you're a supporter. Now, you could be a driver. What's a driver? A driver always folds their pizza. And from what I get from this article, if I'm correct, the supporter sometimes folds their pizza, but not always. They have different ways of eating it. And the driver always folds their pizza, and they always eat it that same way. So what characteristics do you have if you're a driver? Well, you don't waste any time on eating pizza. You take charge, you're strong, you're confident, you're quick, You have quick decisions, you stand by them, and you're a leader. That's if you're a driver. Now, the last one is the way we normally eat pizza, and it's called the classicist. And in that, you just pick it up in a traditional way and eat it, I suppose, with the point going in your mouth first. This is what I would assume. The traits, if you're a classicist, is that you like plain pizza. You have traditional taste. You go straight forward in your life. You just go forward with your life. And you have a simple elegance. Isn't that fascinating? Now, the thing is, as I said before, don't get hung up on all this stuff. It doesn't mean a whole lot. But as people, we are always trying to understand what other people are like. We always want to know what's a person like, because we get attracted to people, and we want to know more about them. I think we innately bond with some people, and we don't bond with other people. And what's the explanation for it? What draws people to each other? We talk about falling in love, but there's more to it than that. What about falling in like? Now, what I mean by that is not as odd as you might think. You're falling in like. There are some people that you're drawn to and you really like them. There are other people that you don't like. It's almost instinctive. You don't want to be with them. You don't want to be around them. You don't necessarily have any reason why. I know sometimes you can change your mind. When I first started teaching, I went to a seminar for counselors, and there was this guy there. I didn't want him as one of my seminar leaders. He had a beard, and I didn't like him that well. He looked a little scruffy to me. But I was kind of a traditionalist, and this was my first seminar after getting out of college and getting a job, my first teaching job. But I had him, and it turns out he's one of the best professors I ever had. I really liked him. We formed a bond, and when I wrote my first book, I actually dedicated my book to him. So sometimes when you're drawn to somebody or you're repulsed by somebody, if you give it a shot, if you give it a try, you find out that your perceptions of the person that you like or dislike can be totally wrong. So don't just get so hung up. I like this person, I don't like that person. And I think there's a core that we have. I had a professor once who talked about the irrational core. He wrote a book on it. And he was a psychology professor. He was a very, very nice person. And he wrote this book about the irrational core. And what he meant by that is that there is a core to every person that really can't be examined. It's the heart of you. It's what makes you tick. And we can talk about all kinds of characteristics that a person may have, but in them there is something there. They are a unique, perceptive individual, and you can't really test out that core. There's no way to do it. At least that was what his theory was. So humans are more than the sum of their parts. You've got a nervous system, a blood system, skin, you've got brain, you've got all kinds of digestive system and the liver and the kidneys. If you put all of these together, that doesn't totally make up who you are. There's something else. And it can have a spiritual base, I believe. So you are more than the sum of your parts, just like your car is more than the sum of its parts. I know a lot of people say their cars have personalities. They just bond with their car, and they think of their car as having a personality. Now, I don't go near that far. I'm just reporting to you what I see in people and what I hear about people. But nonetheless, there is something within us that can't be measured. I can measure the intelligence of people that I know. I can give them IQ tests, and I've done it. But that doesn't really totally describe who they are. There's something else, you see. We're unique, we're created by God, we're unique, and nothing can get to that core except God does. But other than that, we have to assume that what we know isn't quite complete. It's not like we can't know a person. I can know a person. I know my family. I know people who are friends of mine. I know what they're like. I know their interests. But that doesn't mean I know everything about them. There would be a core of them that I may or may not know. And this is something that we have to realize by testing people out or by developing theories of personality or whatever it is that we do. It doesn't mean we know a person completely, because inwardly assuredly there may be something there that we are missing. So people are more than the sum of their parts. So I know that, and I want to get into, let me just switch my page here so I get things in order as I want them to be. Now, supposing I want to get married, supposing I want to know somebody well enough to get married. Now, we all know about shows. Some people watch these shows. It have to do with a woman who dates 35 guys or 28 guys, whatever it is, and then in a matter of 13 weeks, they get the person that they want to be their life partner. Or it goes the other way. A guy dates 35 or 25 girls, and at the end of 13 weeks in this show, he's got to choose somebody to be his wife for the rest of his life. Most of those marriages, by the way, don't work out. There's a lot of failure in those shows in which people choose their partner by going on television and dating people. But I just want to give you an example of this. And I'm using myself, although I'm not interested in getting married, but supposing, this is just a supposing, it's like a thought project. Supposing I woke up one morning and said, you know what, I think I'm going to get married. I've never been married. I think it's about time I get married. So how am I going to do it? I'm going to date 35 people, 35 men. Sometimes I might date as a group date. Sometimes it might be an individual date. Sometimes it may be just 2 or 3 of us. And we'll travel around the globe and we'll date all these guys. And then at the end of 13 weeks, which is about the length of most television shows, thank God it's not longer, and I will have to choose between one of them. So I start dating these 35 people. And some I like right away, and some I don't. And every week I dismiss a few. No, you got to go home. You got to go home. You got to go home. So in 13 weeks, I have to make a choice as to who's going to be my life partner, providing, of course, that that partner also accepts me as possibly being his wife. In 13 weeks, now just look at the ludicrousy of this. 13 weeks dating 35 guys and picking one to be your life partner. Doesn't sound to be a realistic way of choosing a life partner. I don't think so. And it's a setup for heartbreak. Because supposing somebody really does fall in love with me and I send them away, he's heartbroken. So at the end of it, 34 people are heartbroken and only one succeeds. Now, if you stop to think of the logistics of that, if I know a person for 13 weeks only, do I know them well enough to marry them and have a successful marriage? No, even if it's just one person, but try 35. You know, I get really concerned about people who actually think that is a way of choosing a mate. It's just not the way of choosing a mate. Relationships are complicated, and you can't simplify them just by analyzing a trait here and there, because people, you can't put people in boxes. I can't see a person and I like this about you, I don't like that about you, and check all these boxes and then put them in a box. You're like this, you're over here. Somebody else, I like this, I dislike that, I think we can get along, maybe I'm in love, put them in another box, put them right here. Don't you think that's an unfair way of treating people, of analyzing people, and of knowing people? And so I think we need to be a lot more open. I think generally speaking, when you meet a person, you like them, you're attracted to them, maybe not, but maybe so. And then if it's mutual, at some point, they may ask you out, you go out for coffee, you go out for dinner or something, and then after that, you kind of test the waters. Well, maybe I like him more than I thought I would, so I go out with him further, and then maybe we break up, but if we don't, that leads to maybe a relationship, a friendship. Maybe it stays at a friendship and doesn't go any further, or maybe I get engaged, maybe I get married in the end. And that's with one person gradually growing a relationship, not trying to fix a person up and make him what I want him to be. I have to have the respect of a person. I have to have respect for people so that I don't put them in little boxes and say, you're this, you're this, you're this, because truthfully, I don't know. At the end of 13 weeks, you don't know a person well enough to get married, and yet this is what these shows do. So what is love? And we try to answer the question of what is love. Why not also answer the question of what is like? What draws us to a person to like them? I don't mean marry them. If it's love, yes, it'll lead to marriage, but you like certain people. And how do you decide who you like? What happens? I don't think it's a conscious decision on your part to like or dislike a person. I think you get to grow with a person. You get to know them with your growth. They get to grow too, and you kind of sense each other out, and somehow you kind of click. And if you kind of click, that click can get deeper and deeper and deeper, or maybe it doesn't get deeper, but you click. And after you click, then you decide, well, I'll go out with them, or I'll go out with her, and we'll get to be friends, and we'll take it gradually. You don't do it with 35 people at the same time. It just does not work. Although it may work for some, I would hazard a guess it doesn't work for very many. So what is like? It's different than love. What's the difference between liking a person and loving a person? That's a whole question that needs to be answered. You know, when you consider love, there are different types of love. Love of a child, love of a family member, love of your married partner if you're married, brotherly love, the love between a man and a woman, love of your calling. You know, if you're called to do a certain kind of career, you can love that career. So all of these types of love are somewhat different. I know Freud would say you have 4 or 5 types of love. You've got brotherly love. You've got a family love for your partner, which is different. You've got the love of a child, you know, and that all of that kind of love is somewhat, you can define it differently because it's not exactly the same. I love my pets. It's not the same thing as loving a child. It's not the same thing as loving my parents, if my parents were alive, but they're not. You know, or loving my sisters and relatives. It's all different types of love. So that we have to say then that there's different gradations of love, different definitions of love. And I'm just trying to get you to think. I don't have any special answers that are different than anybody else's answers, although I'm going to get into some of them on the next segment because we don't have time to do it this segment. But just stop to think for a while. What attracts you to other people? What attracts other people to you? And how do you make a determination? Is it conscious or is it subconscious? I tend to think it's mainly subconscious in terms of the people that you like or the people that you don't want to be with. I'm not saying you hate them or anything. You just don't want to be with them. There's no spark there. And some people really like people. They just are people lovers. They like people. I tend to be one of those. Other people are quiet. They don't want to be around people. They want to be solitary. It doesn't mean they dislike people, but that they're just not attracted to be with people most of the time. So you have your own personality issues that get into the mix here. So it's complicated, and I think it's worth bringing up because I think it's worth thinking about to understand yourself better in terms of who you're attracted to and why. And if you're not attracted to a person, why not? And should you try to be attracted to a person if you're not? Why are you going to try to change things to make a person more acceptable to you if they're not? I mean, there are all kinds of things to think about, all kinds of things to discuss. So I'm going to stop it here, and you can think about this. But next segment, I'm going to go into how do you have relationships and how can relationships be successful. And I'm not going to directly answer some of these questions I'm posing, but I'd like to have you think about them because you may come up up with things, knowledge about yourself that you don't have now. So I will go on to the next segment and talk about the qualities of relationships and how we should treat each other so that we have good relationships. And that is important because our whole life is based upon what we have for relationships and our friends and how we handle them and how they handle us. It's a lot about what life is about. So this is the reason why I want to get into all of this, and it's the reason why I brought it up to begin with. So we'll close it here, and we'll continue next time. Please join me then.